Philip to Evelyn, 27 December 1944. Dearest Evelyn, it has been a very busy Christmas for me, and I regret to report I found no opportunity to write during the course of it. On Christmas Eve, I joined a few of the boys around the radio to hear the 2-hour-long command performance. Of course, this wasn't the only inducement. There were also refreshments. Klein and I had volunteered to pull KP on Christmas Day so that none of the other fellows would be stuck with this unwelcome detail on the one day in the year when it is both toughest, as far as physical effort is concerned, and most unwelcome because it ruins their holiday. Well, Chippy, we got up at 5 a.m., walked down to the mess hall, had some breakfast, and were put to work in the pots and pans department. We worked without let-up, except for meal times, until 8 p.m. It was the hardest day I've put in a long, long time, but I was glad to do it nevertheless. Afterwards, Klein insisted that I accompany him to the movies to see Rainbow Island. If you remember, sweet, I saw it in London and didn't particularly care for it. I would much rather have come back to barracks to get a letter off to you, but when Klein insisted, I couldn't refuse him, because he had worked like a beaver all day and anticipated me when the heaviest or dirtiest work had to be done, and put himself out in 100 different little ways that didn't escape my notice to make my work easier. Yesterday, Boxing Day, Sergeant Murphy, of whom I may be writing in another connection soon, gave Klein and me the day off. The rest of the company was off on Christmas Day. We slept till 10:30, then rose and cleaned up and dressed, meaning to catch the 12:30 run into town. Unfortunately, it took us longer to get ready than we had figured on, and missed the run. So we hiked out to the main road, and after a short wait, caught a ride in a USA Army truck to a point about 2 miles from town. Noticing an inn across the way, we stopped in for a couple of beers. The bus that was supposed to come along never showed up, so after a while we caught another hop that took us as far as the local bus line. After a 5-minute wait, the bus came along. Arrived in town, we taxied to Evelyn's and Bert's place. Evelyn's father was there, and both Ev and Bert were at home, because the shop was closed on account of Boxing Day. Willie Rosenzweig, who practically lives there, was also in attendance. Later in the evening, the two girls who worked for Bert came in. After supper, during the course of which I deliberately horrified everyone at table by passing up the chicken and turkey in favor of 3 club sandwiches. Page 2 of 1 tomato herring, 2 cheese, and 3 red cabbage, and 4 sauce, Klein amused us all with his non-stop clowning. He pestered one of the girls, Kathy, till she was almost frantic. It is almost impossible to describe his technique with women. One has to see it to believe it. But in spite of his vulgarities, coarseness, and talent for making a fool of himself, I have yet to see any female take offense. Paradoxically, he has more women on the string than he can take care of, and I mean that as literally as you could possibly imagine. I've puzzled over his way with women till my head hurt, but I'm damned if I can understand it. When it was time to leave, we tried to call a cab, but were told that all cabs were grounded because a heavy fog had settled and it was unsafe. So we walked to the station where the truck from the base was waiting to pick up the guys coming in from London. It was a pretty long hike, about 3/4 of an hour's walk, and the weather was cold enough to make it uncomfortable. Then the damn train was late, so we sat, tired and cold, for an hour before we finally started back to camp. This morning, after 5 hours sleep, I was roused to relieve the CQ while he went to eat. The rest of the day went pretty slowly because I am pretty well caught up with my work, which all brings me right up to the minute. I might say that in the past 4 days, I received only 2 of your letters. A email dated 12 December and a letter dated 1 December. They are both fairly long but require no particular comment except, "Thanks, honey, for writing so regularly. Wish I could do the same." Before closing, I must mention the weather these past few days. It is almost the coldest weather we have experienced in England. The days are sunny generally with little wind, but the most interesting aspect is the frost. I've read about hoarfrost, but this is the first time I've seen it, and very pretty it is too. Every leaf, every twig, and blade of grass is coated with a heavy sprinkling of this white frost, which looks almost like snow, but isn't. The sun shining on this mixture of green and white makes the whole landscape most attractive. I've wished 100 times that you could see it, baby. Well, darling, I guess that's about all for tonight. I haven't wished you a Merry Christmas because I know that literally it's a vain wish, but I can certainly wish you a better New Year, and that I do with all my heart. I adore you, my Chippy. My dearest love to the pumpkin. My love to all. Always, your Phil. P.S. Tell Goldie I thank her for the letter. My best to Harry and Diana Jean. I'm looking forward to seeing her picture. Evelyn to Philip, December 28, 1944. My dearest, as seems to be my custom these days, I am starting to type this letter at work. I doubt very much if there was any mail for me today, for I am sure the folks would have called me. The news is better today, for a change, and that is heartening. I wonder, honey, if you still feel so optimistic as you did in a recent letter. Anne, the bookkeeper, told me quite a bit about her life history, and it certainly is a history. To begin with, she was married, gave birth to 2 children who were born dead, and finally divorced her husband because he was a mama's boy. You'd never think she was through so much to look at her, but that's life for you. She's a nice person, and we often talk about our lives when the opportunity presents itself. Last week and this week, the wholesaler is very slow. In fact, his business is almost at a standstill. Mr. Bellet went to Young's for a workout, and at the present time, everyone, including yours truly, is loafing. We aren't loafing because, truthfully, there is no work to do. I had quite a bit, but I finished and thought it a good idea to get my letter typed before getting home. I spent all of last night knitting on Diana's sweater, and now have the back and almost the fronts completed. Adele had a running nose, but I caught it just in time. That is, I treated it as you would a cold, and it is just about gone now. She was very restless the other night, but last night she let me sleep uninterrupted. The snow of yesterday was more of an icy hail, and this morning Adele reminded me to, quote, put your yashes on, it's slippery out, end quote. Some of her thoughts and sentences really floor me at times. It's really surprising to hear some of the things she, page 2, says. I always look at her twice to make sure I heard what she said. By the way, sweet, I have not received your November bond as yet, and I hope it hasn't gone astray. If I don't receive it within the next week or so, I think it would be a good idea to have it traced or something. The OPA is tightening up on its rationing of food, and more items become scarcer and scarcer. Some foods are so sky high it isn't even funny. I love tomatoes, but we can't afford to buy them at their present rate. We're very short on points too, and that isn't so good. I guess we'll manage to stay fed regardless. I thought it very sweet of Red to send along that card for Adele, and I'm indeed sorry that I didn't mail off some cards this year. Somehow, I'm just not in the mood for sending out cards that hardly express my true feelings. I can't seem to feel too good about anything these days, and I have even less appetite for celebrations and the like. Goldie is planning to have Diana's picture taken in the house, and perhaps when she calls the photographer in, I shall have Adele's picture made. I think it would be a good idea, for then Petey can come over, for Petey more than anyone can get her to do just as he says. I wish you could see her pose for him. By the way, those snaps he made of her on her birthday didn't come out. Darn it, they were real beauties too. Goldie, too, is so helpful since Mom got back from New York that I have to look twice to make sure I'm seeing right. Wonders will never cease. And so, sweetheart mine, I've had my say, and I'm quite surprised I filled the sheet. I guess you won't mind if I tell you, my dearest, that I love you very dearly. Your Ev. P.S. Pretty good, don't you think?